Hi, everybody. This is episode 68 of the Alfie Whattam Technology Podcast. As always, we are sponsored by welovealpha.com. So if you're a software developer open to new opportunities, or if you're an engineering manager or a company and you're looking to grow and scale and hire the best of the best developers, then welovealpha.com is the place where you need to go. So today in episode 68, I'm joined by Mike Anderson. Hi, Mike. Would you be able just to give us a bit of an intro, please? Tell everybody who you are and what your business is and what your story is.
Hi, Alfie. Great to be on the show. So my name is Mike Anderson. I am the managing director at Convex. And Convex is a new foundation. It's a non-profit foundation. And we are dedicated to building the enabling technology for the Internet of Value. So particularly how we can use decentralized technology to create the next generation of economic systems where people can interact on a peer-to-peer or self-sovereign basis, sort of taking the development of blockchain technology, but developing that further to enable more kinds of new economic models and different kinds of transactions that people might want to do.
Okay, awesome. Well, probably one of the most fascinating spaces to be in right now. So good place to be, man. Well, thanks for joining us. So first article of the day, CoinFund launches $300 million Web3 fund to invest in early stage crypto. So as capital continues to deploy the crypto economy, another big fund is entering the space. So 7-year-old CoinFund, I think we've talked about them before on the show, is launching a $300 million early stage Web3 venture fund, CoinFund Ventures One, which is backed by institutional investors, family offices, and crypto native founders. So everybody's getting in on this one. They started in 2015, invested in more than 100 portfolio companies since then. The managing partner and head of investing for ventures at CoinFund said to TechCrunch. So quite a big piece of news in sort of the investment world, specifically in your area. What are your thoughts, Mike, around big investment firms like this getting more and more into crypto?
Oh, I think it's a great thing. I mean, this reminds me, it maybe before your time, but I remember the 90s and the dot-com boom and where all the money was flowing into the early internet startups. And there was so much experimentation going on, so many new different kinds of technologies being created. And obviously from that, a few big winners emerged, like the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons of the world came out of all of that investment. So I think it's great. It's an exciting time. And obviously, there are some big returns to be had for the people who invest well. I think, though, similarly, of course, like in the dot-com boom, there's going to be a few flops and a few failures, and that's something that investors are always going to sort of take their risk with. But overall, yeah, I think it's an exciting time, exciting space, and as we are a new network, we would certainly be potentially applying for some of these sort of investments of this nature.
Awesome. I've been in crypto since 2017, and it's been an amazing investment, especially some of the altcoins have done really, really well. But it's been like the most chaotic journey of my life in terms of how volatile it was. I remember at one point I used to have an Apple Watch with the price of Bitcoin on, which was a terrible idea because you just have heart attacks every 5 seconds and then euphoria the rest of the time, thinking it was going to the moon. But what about people that say crypto is too volatile? What would you say to those people?
I think it's just the nature of the game, to be honest. I mean, if you are investing in, or if you're putting your money in an asset class which is still very early in its overall life cycle, like startups, I mean, effectively, what's happened here, just wind a step back, what's happened here is the kind of things that previously would have only been available to like venture capitalists, which like holding equity in early stage startups, is suddenly getting into the hands of people who might be purchasing coins and tokens as a small investment as an individual. And previously they'd only have been able to do that with with the investments in large established companies, your Apples and of the world, etc. So people just aren't used to dealing with holding in small investments in very small assets that aren't really that widely traded, and they're bound to be volatile, just as the nature of the business and the nature of how quickly these things evolve. So I don't think it's a case of them being too volatile. I think it's a case of people not really understanding the asset class that they're trying to invest in. It's just a natural way that these things, I think, are going to behave.
Do you think we'll get to a point, this might be in the near future, the long distance, where countries' economies are replaced with crypto type coins, and it becomes almost the main method of exchange for buying and selling goods, or do you think that's too beyond what's going to happen?
I think that is entirely plausible. And what I actually think will happen is you'll start to see multiple models running in parallel in many countries. And I do think this will happen by country, because it will depend on what government regulations say, and it will depend on what governments encourage, and it will depend upon what the regulatory authorities agree to license, etc., in different countries. But we could easily see a world in which some transactions are conducted in cash, some transactions are conducted with debit and credit cards, like in a lot of the traditional financial world right now. Some transactions are conducted with things like stable coins, and it may be that some nation states will choose to back certain stable coins just so that they can get the efficiency of enabling decentralized trading in their economies. And then there's always probably going to be an area where non-stable coins are used, and this is where there's going to be a lot of volatility and possibly a few scams and possibly a few nasty surprises. But there's going to be that area as well. And so I think we're going to head towards a sort of hybrid model where multiple different methods of transacting are possible. Different governments may develop some of those sectors more than others, and probably I think the most successful ones are the ones that manage to find the right balance. What's the right balance between having the stability that can be provided by a national currency, but also the flexibility and the innovation which is provided by having some kind of decentralized currency that enables things like smart contracts and self-sovereign accounts, these kind of things. So
what do you think mass adoption will look like with crypto? Like, if we're not already there, what do you think the world will look like after this becomes, because right now people are using it, but they're using it like gold, it's a measure of value right now. It's not usually used as a method of exchange. It's becoming more and more to that point. But what do you think mass adoption will look like, and what impact do you think that will have on the world?
So what I think it'll actually look like is it becomes just seamless in the apps and the systems that you interact with. So let me give you a silly example. Let's say that you have a social media network of the nature of Twitter, where every time you click a like, it gives a tip to the person who posted that thing. It should just be seamless. You shouldn't even have to know how that is happening under the covers. It should just be part of the workflow. And that every time you press a like button, you lose one penny, but 1 penny goes to the person who posted something that kept you entertained for 30 seconds. So you feel that's a fair trade. And that's the way that I think it will become mainstream. It will be so easy, it'll be so fast, it'll be so simple, and it'll be so cheap that you don't really care about it. And when you go to things like shops, you can specify, hey, I'd like to pay with my crypto wallet rather than my credit card. Fine, that's also integrated into all of that workflow. So I think the secret to mass adoption is making it seamless, cheap, and fast, so that it's not a bottleneck. And then why wouldn't you use it? It's probably going to be cheaper than using any of the sort of current alternatives once we get the infrastructure out there that makes it seamless, cheap, and fast. I
suppose on that exact subject, really, of crypto getting better and better and faster, Ethereum back again in the news. So Ethereum's big proof of stake blockchain switch could happen as early as September the 15th. They've obviously been talking about this for a long time, but the whole point is that the second biggest crypto in the world could become much more energy efficient in the next couple of weeks. So the Ethereum network has been on a years-long path to switch its energy-hungry proof of work blockchain to a more efficient proof of stake system. And now its developers are suggesting a date to make the switch. It's not final yet, but a call streamed via the Ethereum Foundation's YouTube page. It's all happening, like hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I've heard multiple people talking about this. What are your thoughts, Mike, on the evolution of Ethereum and kind of where it's going to?
So, I mean, first of all, I think going to proof of stake and switching away from proof of work is super good thing. I mean, I always thought, you know, I kind of like us to have an inhabitable planet in future years, and one of the things we need to collectively do is to you know, constrain our resource consumption, and particularly energy consumption, fossil fuels, and anything that reduces our energy consumption in the long run is going to make our energy supplies cheaper and more sustainable, and that's a great thing. So absolutely the right move to move to proof of stake. Regarding some of the other changes, I'm actually a little bit more skeptical, because one of the beautiful things about Ethereum 1 was it did, at least in some ways, have this concept of a global state model where all of the different transactions interacted on a global state. And some of the developments that are coming in Ethereum are sort of breaking that down a bit. And I think, in a way, I think that's a shame. As you start to build it into shards, then you start to create barriers in the way that different smart contracts and different decentralized systems can interact with each other. And I think that's going to be a problem for Ethereum from an architectural perspective as we go forward. And, you know, we see that already with the problems of people trying to build decentralized systems that span across multiple different networks, different consensus protocols, or different shards within the same network. And that's going to be a problem. And, you know, I predict people are going to wrestle with that for quite a few years to come, trying to find out the best way to deal with it. I actually think Ethereum 1 got it right in this sense. You do need this concept of a global state where all of the different smart contracts can interact on a sort of level playing field. Yeah.
Part of the issue a lot of the times that viewers have with crypto is the fact that there are 1,000,001 different coins out there. Obviously, but Bitcoin, you know, ETH, you know, Ripple, Litecoin, some of the big ones, and then it's almost hard to determine on the altcoins which ones are just a scam and which ones are actually, you know, something that could have a big impact on the world potentially. Are there any, I'm not asking you to pick favorites, but are there any coins that you're like, wow, that's interesting tech, that's worth watching, or do you prefer just to kind of stay away from individual coins and just kind of focus more on concepts and that sort of thing?
So, I mean, I have to say that I focus on building. I build these things. So, you know, and the last thing I would ever do is give investment advice. You know, I remember I looked at Bitcoin in the early age of Bitcoin, and I went, that's a stupid idea. That's going to waste a lot of energy and be so inefficient. No one's going to want to use it. And then, of course, I'm kicking myself in for missing out on that particular one from an investment perspective. So don't take any advice from me about what investments to make. You know, do absolutely 100% do your own research. I would say two things from a sort of more philosophical and technical perspective that you should absolutely look at is, first of all, is it real? Is the, you know, working technology, proof of concept, something you can see and touch, and, you know, is it actually a, you know, got something that shows that it's more than just you know, hype and vaporware? That's really important. And the second thing I would say is, do look at the economics. If it looks too good to be true and it looks like people are getting paid for doing nothing, then it probably is too good to be true. And you should always look at, you know, well, is this some very cleverly disguised scheme that is eventually a Ponzi scheme? And again, you have to do your own research. You have to look very carefully at how that's working. But I would urge caution if it looks too good to be true, particularly in terms of paying people out at an early stage.
Yeah, crypto right now reminds me almost of the 2000 .com situation. So you had loads of pets.coms which didn't go anywhere, but out of the ashes of that, you have what we have today, and everything certainly worked out for the better and then some. But I kind of feel like the crypto winter that we just had, and that kind of almost was that point really, and now it's all about rebuilding once again, and there'll be many other winters on the way, right? It's not a smooth ride from here, but it seems like the first one, well, it's not the first one, but the first big one that everyone kind of recognized, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think that's a good analogy. It is very much like the dot-com boom, and there will be some great successes and some great failures in the future. One thing that I do think is a little bit different, and forgive me if my thoughts aren't quite fully formed on this yet, but I do think it would be good if in the decentralized space, we do find that we have a bit more of an open system where more people can innovate at in different parts of the supply chain, and it doesn't just get monopolized by a few big players. And because that's one of the great things about decentralized technology. It means that you don't have to build these huge conglomerate entities which are dominating certain parts of the space. You can actually have many more decentralized actors acting more as a network or as a sort of ecosystem or community providing these things. And I do think that if we do decentralized technology right, we ought to see more of those kind of models, where one company doesn't have to do everything. You can have different people contributing value in different ways.
Yeah.
So still to be seen, but certainly my aspiration would be that we can build some of the tech that enables that kind of thing.
Awesome. Cool. Well, look, keeping it blockchain themed, final article. So the world's first Microsoft Excel spreadsheet NFTs go on sale, but with a twist. So it's all for a good cause. It's all to raise money. So the world's first Microsoft Excel-based NFT art collection has gone on sale as part of an effort to raise funds for the victims of the war in Ukraine. So it kind of looks like, I imagine these are the different tiles on Excel, and they've made a, obviously a pitch there of the Prime Minister, President, and the flag in the background. Cool story. NFTs are interesting. What are your thoughts on all this?
I mean, I think it's great if you can use something like innovative and fun way to raise money for a cause that you believe in. So in that sense, I think it's I think it's great. And NFTs I find fascinating, because the idea that you basically got a virtual possession that doesn't have any existence in the real world. It's just an information object, but it still has the aspects of control that you associate with traditional property. And I believe there's even some interesting legal projects to like codify what that means. So I find NFTs fascinating. They've got a lot of different uses. They're easy to make. So I sometimes would go, okay, well, is this PNG file really worth $100,000? Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I mean, that's going to be a subjective value judgment, but it's certainly a very interesting space. And I think there's a lot of innovation going to happen in NFTs. I think the things that get me more interested in NFTs are less about how much they sell for or what they look like artistically, but it's do these things become a bit more functional? Does an NFT have some feature or some capability that has some kind of inherent value that you're looking to use? And that could be a service from some kind of membership of some club. It could be access control to some kind of digital systems. We had the fun idea of creating an NFT which is a box, like a lockbox that you can put other assets inside, and only the owner can take the assets in and out. But the actual box itself acts as a container for other digital assets. So there's a lot of functional things that you can start experimenting with NFT, which I think are very cool. And a lot of innovation is going to happen.
The most basic form is what I did, which was take a picture of me and my dog and put it on OpenSea. I mean, that was that's as basic as it comes. But I like the fact that the digital art has basically become a gateway to the other use cases, because it was the simplest thing to start with. Here's a picture, and here's a way of tracking it. There you are. But what's interesting is when that becomes like every receipt in the world becomes an NFT, or every concert ticket, or whatever. I mean, can you think about and describe perhaps any of the use cases, Mike, that let's say in 5-10 years people might be using NFTs for?
That's a super interesting. I think things like memberships, are great usage. Yeah. So you have a limited number of memberships of your club. You're selling the NFTs that represent membership, but you have decided that you want membership to be transferable, so someone can pass it on to someone else. And as you can then build an NFT that represents the rules that you want to implement in your club. And you could even have rules like how that gets inherited, or if someone wants to give up their membership or auction their membership, how would that work? So there's a lot of different rights that you can express as an NFT that then have functional use in how you act, both as a member of the club and as an economic agent who may want to sell or trade this membership at some time. So I think we'll see a lot of these kind of applications where the NFT represents some legal or social or organizational right that is transferable in some way. Now, that's not going to suit everything. Some things maybe aren't transferable, but your passport, wouldn't expect your passport to be an NFT.
Sure.
But you might have other ways of using a decentralized system to validate your passport and identity.
Yeah.
So I think those are the kind of things that become interesting, and then the NFTs, they become the kind of thing you can put in a box. You can create a gift box of NFTs. You can have markets for NFTs where you can put together bundles of NFTs, etc., etc. And it will just be a lot of innovation, a lot of different ideas get experimented with. But I think the ones really to look for are the ones that say that are functional, that they've got some utility that goes along with the ownership of the NFT.
I find it doesn't even need to be physical functionality in the respect that if you have a real piece of artwork on the wall, but you also get an NFT with that to prove your ownership and it's not a fraud, then that's wonderful. But even with things that aren't physical, so in the metaverse, for example, NFT clothing, it sounds crazy, but in 10 years from now, I don't think the world's biggest clothes company is going to be Nike or Adidas or whoever it is. I think it was probably going to be an NFT clothing company, selling clothes on the metaverse or something. I mean, who knows? But wouldn't surprise me.
I could totally imagine that. Actually, everyone loves fashion. Everyone wants to look good in the spaces where they interact. And as people start going into interactive spaces, then they're going to want clothes and gadgets and accessories that suit them. So 100%. The only thing I would say, of course, is that printing material in a virtual space is super cheap. Yeah. So the economics are going to be interesting. Yeah. I mean, yes, there may be a big premium for the biggest designer, but also it's going to be possible to dress well for, 3 cents, because, people can print 1 billion of these things effectively for free. So it will be interesting to see how those economies develop. And I think that brings us on to one of the other interesting points about the metaverse I think no one's really got a handle on yet, is to what extent are these assets usable in different virtual environments? Yeah. And how much do they cross over? And, if you're a game developer, are you going to do the work to make sure that a certain kind of clothing item renders in game? Does that even make sense for your game? Is the art style correct, etc., etc.? So these are some of the challenges that I think have still got to be worked through in that space. And you'll probably find that, at least initially, a lot of these virtual asset and clothing ecosystems are sort of limited to the game environment or the metaverse environment in which they're created. And there may be some collaborations and stuff, but I think that's one thing that no one's really got a good answer for yet, because the work, it's not just about the digital asset, it's about the work in the client or in the game software to represent and display and, you know, show that asset in all its glory. And that's real work. And, you know, people aren't going to do that unless they see the value of implementing that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that before. It's a good point. Cool. Well, look, thanks for coming on, Mike. It was good to get your perspective and your point of view on a couple of topics that are happening in the world. Thanks for your time. Good to get you back on again in a few months to see what else is happening. And thanks to everybody for watching as well. So if you're watching on Spotify, make sure that you subscribe. Same on YouTube and all the other channels. And make sure that you come back next week for more episodes of the podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.